Hey everybody, thanks for joining me this Friday. I'm chilly and I'm windy. The windy makes me feel more cold. So today I wanted to share with you a tool that I've been using, and I want you to try and keep an open mind because you may have heard of it but been a little bit hesitant to use it. So the question for today is, how do you keep track of your to-do list at work? What is your methodology right now? Go ahead and let me know in the comments. I see that Christine is here. Good to see you, Christine. And Kathleen is here, and she was enjoying the puppies. And Victoria, good to see that you made it. Victoria is one of the people that I mentored this past year. Let's see. We have some people over on YouTube. Oh, good. Some people are... Usually YouTube people are more quiet, but today it looks like they're participating, so that's cool. So Luis is noticing that I have a new background. Yes, I do. In fact, Luis was the one that identified what the other background was. It was so funny after that show, my first show where I had the new background. Luis sent me a message saying, I know exactly what building that is. I used to live on like the 27th floor or whatever. And he was describing like that area of New York, downtown Manhattan. So that was pretty cool. I think, Luis, you called it the Dumbo area, but anyways, that was pretty cool. Okay, so AM, I'm not sure who that is on YouTube. Let me know your first name so I can call you correctly. You use Excel and Outlook for your to-do list, okay? And Pat is in the house. Hi, Pat. Good to see you. All right, so let me know what you currently use for your to-do list at work. I've used a bunch of different things over the years. It's hard to keep track of everything that you need to do across all of your client matters. So I'm curious what tools you're using now. Alex is here from LA. Good to see you, Alex. Go ahead and let me know what you use right now. I'm curious. So I've used databases actually, and I've used a pad of paper, and I've used Post-it notes, and I've used little tiny pieces of paper, you know, not a pad, but, you know, little tiny pieces of paper that end up, you know, adding up all over my desk. And then I've tried to use Outlook, you know, as like a draft email that stays in the draft folder. Okay, so Wade is saying hello. And okay, so Jennifer is saying Outlook. Alex is saying Excel. And Brad is saying Outlook. Hey Brad, good to see you. Victoria is saying I use a calendar, not very techy. Well, actually, you know, the tasks in the calendar, a lot of people do use that. Let's see. Alex says always paper. Ankit, who works with me in India, glad you made it, Ankit, because I know it's really late for you. Ankit says he uses sticky notes. Let's see. Kathleen says she uses Trello. Wade says he uses Agility Blue, which Wade, when I sent my email reminder this morning to remind you guys about the show happening today, Wade replied and told me he's using this tool, and of course I had to click on it and look at it, and I got all excited. So maybe we'll be talking about that in a future show. Karen saying she uses Notepad, so, you know, electronic version of a notebook. And Sonia is saying an Outlook and a notebook. Yep, I could see that. And Jude is saying a Google Calendar and a notebook. So my latest thing that I used most of the last, gosh, 5 to 7, no, it's probably, I'm so old. It's probably the last 8 to 10 years. I started buying these, actually I have one here. I started buying these notebooks, and you know, they're college ruled and they have sections, but I don't really use the sections anymore. But I started buying this size. I used to buy the 8.5 by 11, and I would always grab it, you know, and take it with me whenever I met with an attorney in their office. And I ended up, as I got older, I got smarter and got a smaller size. But I have so many of these notebooks, and I still use them today. I have different colors for different things. Like I have a work one, a home one, a litigation sport guru one, a case point one. You know, I use different ones. And so it goes with me wherever my work stuff goes. You know, it's easy to put in my bag and take home. But nowadays, actually, to be honest, sometimes I would just take a picture on my phone. I would take a photo of my to-do list and then go home, and then I didn't have to take the notebook with me. Let's see. Wade is saying at a former firm he developed a SharePoint system. And Pat is saying non-techie paper now, and she used to use Agility Blue and loved it. That's cool, Pat. And then here's the first. Jennifer is saying OneNote, which I know some people, not many people in legal use it, but I know a lot of people outside of legal use it. Okay, so that was a variety of responses, right? So the timer's down, obviously. Let's go ahead and start the show officially. Welcome to the Legal Tech Mastery Show. My name is Amy Bowser-Rollins, and I'm really excited to have you all with me today to be part of me sharing a cool tool with you. And like I said in the beginning, if you just got here, I want you to keep an open mind because you may have used this tool in the past or tried to use this tool. And I'm going to show it to you today in a way that I want you to embrace the simplicity of it. And it's free, so it's not like you have to go to your IT department and ask for them to install some software and go to the office manager and ask for them to buy it for you. So you don't have to worry about that. And it's available because it's, you know, web-based. It's available wherever you are. But I have a couple of things I want to share with you first. One is that it's really windy here on the East Coast, so much so that, you know, schools were closed and people are staying home. But I want to share this one photo with you that happened this morning. So some of you may remember David Carnes was on my show last season. I think it was episode 5, and he's a really good friend of mine, and he lives near me in Maryland. And this is a tree in his front yard that went down at 6 a.m. this morning. So it blocked his driveway. But luckily his cars were in the garage, so and it looks like it didn't hit anything structural, but that's pretty scary. But the wind, serious wind to get that tree, that large of a tree, to fall down. So the next thing I want to show you is something personal to me. And let's see if I can get this ready for you. All right, so this is my iPhone camera connected to my streaming system, and I am showing you in the studio with me is Maggie and Harley. Maggie's the darker one, and so Maggie is turning 3 next month, and Harley's turning 2 this month, and they're from the same mother and father, so same breeders. So it's pretty cool. They're a handful, but you know, I love that they hang out with me in the studio, you know how dogs are, they follow you around. But they're good. They're quiet and they just hang out. Okay, so the agenda for today is I'm going to go over a couple of examples and to give you a feel for what I'm talking about. And most of the examples in the beginning are legal examples because I wanted to try and make it as on point as possible. And then I'm going to go over the basics of the tool, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about some extras before I let you go. There's a whole bunch of extra things you can do, but I'm going to just talk about a few of them. Okay, so let's see. Let's go over the examples first. All right, so the tool that I'm going to talk to you today about is Trello. Kathleen gets a gold star for mentioning it earlier, and I already know she likes it. We've talked about it. But I want to start out by explaining that Trello is part of this thing called Kanban. And this is the official definition of Kanban. Basically, it's moving something from the left to the right, which is intuitive for a human being, but it also has to do with these instruction cards. Okay, so this is an example of Post-it notes using the Kanban system and physical Post-it notes as opposed to using some software. Okay, I wanted to start with that because it's important. And this is an attorney. This is their system, okay? And you notice the columns are done, which is supposed to be all the way on the right, billing, which is pertinent to us, waiting, which I use a column like that too. Backlog is a list of everything that needs to be done, sort of a brain dump of everything that needs to get done. Queue, ready, and in process. So that's that person's example. This is another example of an attorney, and their columns are backlog, queue, to do, doing, waiting, and done. Notice the exclamation point on done, because once it's done, we're very happy. But also notice the color-coded system at the top. Blue is billable, the maroon is personal, the next one is easy HIPAA. I think that's what that says. Next one is management back office. Next one is business development, community service, and rep. So it's just another level of color coding, which Trello has. And this is a whiteboard Post-it note version. So the columns are Z, which is just backlog probably, waiting, queue, ready, in process, billing, again, because that's important to us, and done. All right, so interestingly enough, let me switch back. Oops, let me switch to me. Real quick. Let's see. Kathleen is saying she's always wondered how to pronounce that. And the thing is, Kathleen, I will fess up entirely. So before yesterday, I always called it Kanban. But I looked it up because if I'm going to teach about it, I want to say it correctly. So I looked it up and it's Kanban. You know, things you do when you're actually going to share it with someone else. So Sherry's saying interesting, and Karen said she's seen that. I'm wondering if you mean Post-it notes all over the wall. All right, so let me finish my examples here. Let's see. All right, so let's see. This one we went over. This is in Trello. And the columns are initial contact, intake, comma, no engagement, as in, you know, how lawyers are trying to get new clients, and especially if you're a solo, you know, this is really important. Waiting on us, waiting on the client, waiting on court. Very cool. I love that. Post granting steps, that means something to do with the type of law they're practicing, most likely. All right, now here's another example, which you probably can't see very well. A lot of it's blurred out because it was, you know, confidential. But I'll read off the columns to you in case you can't read them. The first one is processes, and that's really cool because that's how I use Trello a lot. I document things in Trello so I know it's there. Backlog is the second column. Inactive. Next column is active. The next one is queue, waiting on X to be ready. So that's like waiting. The next one is ready for work. The next one is priorities. The next one is today dash legal work. And next one's doing. And I'm sure there's a done one after that. And this is the last one, last example. And this is, they called it a litigation board. And that's what I was attracted to, because I wanted to see how lawyers would actually use, Trello. And I actually am attracted to lawyers that are using technology, in their practice and making things more efficient. Okay, so this is the last example, and I'll read off the columns. So actually they have ABC in front of each one, so that's interesting. But they have appeal filed, receipt, notice of receipt of appeal, receipt, notice appeal granted, scheduling mediation, scheduling conference, receive litigation order, BIIIA, and receipt PDO. So that's really cool that I wanted you to see, before I show you what it is and how to use it, I wanted you to see real life examples of how people are using it, and lawyers. They're lawyers using it, not just anybody out there. I mean, you can use this system to plan anything, right? In your personal life, you can track anything. But I wanted you to see specifically in our field. Okay, so, oh, Karen's saying that she had seen the Trello software. That's cool. Okay, so I'm going to take a drink of water, and then I'm going to introduce you to Trello. Now keep in mind, like I said, it's a new software that you have to learn, but Trello is so simple to learn, and you don't even have to do all the bells and whistles. I have all kinds of Trello boards now. I love the simplicity of it. I love that, it's, hey, Reth is in the house. Hey, Reth, good to see you. Nice getting a hug from you at Legal Tech after all these years of knowing each other virtually. And there go the dogs, because there's a noise outside. Okay, so now we're gonna actually show you Trello. So this is, I'm starting with the team aspect, because I like to create teams, because it's easier to create a team of people and then assign a board to them, right? So I called this Legal Team A because I was envisioning that if you were to try to implement this, you could, like, you know how we have separate or different legal teams, different collections of people for each case. So you could have a legal team that's, those two associates, that paralegal, maybe even, legal secretaries and the litigation support person or something like that, or if the paralegal's running the board, litigation support's probably not involved at all. But, just the collection of attorneys, if you're doing a board per matter, which I would think would be the most common, but not necessarily. You saw in some of the examples that they're going across matters. But anyways, you could create teams for each group of people you work with, or not, whatever makes sense to you. And here's an example of me adding myself. It's easy to add somebody. They need a Trello account. But if they don't have one yet, you can just put in their email and they'll get an invitation to join the team or the board, whatever you're inviting them to. But this is just an example of my 3 different Trello accounts. I have one for Litigation Support Guru, I have one for personal, and I have one for Case Point. All right, so then these are the boards that I've assigned to that team, and I just called this one conveniently the name of this show, okay? All right, so now we're in Trello. Beth is saying yes. Dogs are back. Did you see what you wanted to see? Okay, you can lay down now. All right, so these are the columns that I use for the most part. Okay, so backlog comes from the sprint or Scrum methodology, but think of backlog as a brain dump. All the things that you can think of that you need to get done. That's what the backlog would be. Now, most people go from backlog to working on it, which is in progress. But I needed another stage. This made sense in my mind, that if your backlog is really, really, really long and has, things you may never get to, I wanted a column that's like, let's prioritize these to the top. So I always have a next column. Next just means pull from this, column. And when I see this column getting low, I'll move stuff from the backlog over to it. Okay, so the next column I have is in progress because I'm working on it. And then before done, life happens, work happens. There's always something that puts a screeching halt on things. So I always have this on hold. Technology happens, things get in the way. So I always have on hold. So this is my basic board for tracking things I need to do. But I have all kinds of boards with different columns. Right now I'm using a board for CasePoint to create a knowledge base. And so each list, each column has to do with a stage of, writing documentation, proofing documentation, getting the screenshots, getting it into Confluence, which is the software we're using, proofing it once it's in Confluence, formatting it. There's each of these stages, and there's multiple people on the team. So as they start working on different stages, they move it to another list. Okay, so let's start out with the basics here. So the first thing is boards. Notice how I'm using Trello to teach this to you instead of using silly PowerPoint slides. All right, so boards. Let's talk about what boards are. So each board can be a single project or multiple projects. So Ankit is on the knowledge base team in our India office of CasePoint, and he's smiling because he's on the team that I was just mentioning, and we're using Trello, and it's working really, really well. All right, so you can change the background color of the board, and I actually, oops, don't want to edit it. I actually do that because when I'm switching back and forth between boards that are for different things, I need that visual cue. So the default is this blue that you see, and there's a couple of other colors, not too many colors, but actually, let me show you real quick. So if you go here and change background, you can go into the colors and change them to these not too many choices. But you can also use a photo background. I think this personally is too busy for me, but a lot of people use it. They brighten up their day by, using a more, I don't know, something more fun, but that would distract me because, legal work is not always fun. Okay, you can have unlimited lists and cards on the boards. This is a good idea to set up a board the way you like it with the default cards for your system that you have in place already, and then make a copy of it. And then once you make a copy of that board, it could be a template, and then every time you go in for a new matter, you could copy that board and start from there and not start from scratch every time. You can invite team members, as I said earlier, but you can also invite non-team members to collaborate. They don't have to be part of the team. You can invite other people to collaborate on the board, or just to view the board, just to keep tabs on things, like a partner. Partners might not get into the weeds, right? And then this last one is something that I needed for peace of mind. When I had my virtual assistant, she went searching for a solution and she found it for me. So this is really cool. It's a Chrome extension that gives me one extra option in, let me check this off. I'll show you over here. So when I click on more, print and export, and it gives me the ability to export to a CSV and a JSON file, which I wouldn't do. I needed a way. I was getting nervous. I was new to Trello, and because you're always editing your board and your cards, I wanted a backup system. So you can copy the board, that could be your backup system, but I also wanted to export it to Excel, and I was curious how well it would export because I'm a database person. So anyways, I use that Chrome extension to export a board It came out really well, actually, just for safekeeping, you know, just to have a copy of it as it was. All right, so we just, you know, we were talking about boards. We could have moved it here to in progress, and we could go over here to done. You can drag it here, but if you have a lot of stuff, I end up dragging it here. All right, so what are lists? Lists can be stages, as I mentioned earlier, or they could just be task types, things you need to get done, and you're putting it in that column. Or I've seen some examples where you're assigning it to a person by putting it in a column with their name on it, as opposed to the other way you can do it is just add somebody. Okay, so that's what lists are. If you have a matter board, one example is you could have a list that's calendar / deadlines, and each card is an upcoming deadline or court date, and then there's a calendar view that you can see all of that easily. Kathleen says she totally agrees about the photo background. Solid colors work better. Oh my God, Jude. Jude wants to know how secure is it encrypted. I'm not going to answer that question. I don't know. I just know a lot of people use it, including attorneys, but I'm not going there. Okay. On a matter board, you could have a list that's research. We do a heck of a lot of research, right? And each card would be an important issue that you're researching. And then on that card, you could add comments. You could also add attachments from court decisions that you found. A client board, as opposed to a matter board, you could have intake. You could have a column that's a list that's drafting pleadings, and each card would be a matter, and you're moving them through different stages of the matter. And then you could also, this is one thing that I ended up doing, the done list can get as unwieldy as the backlog list, because we're getting stuff done, right? We're putting it in the done column. So I ended up having a system where we had a done list for each month. And then we archived that list, that done list, and then we started a new done list, just because it would get really long. Okay, so that's one idea you have. Okay, so that's lists. Let's move that right on over to done, because we're making some progress here. Cards. So cards are usually equal to a task. A card can have a description. That's this up here. So sometimes when I add the card new, I'll add a description that clarifies. So you want succinct names, right, for your card, because that's going to show up in the list. You don't want to put a whole paragraph in the name of the card. So sometimes I expand on why the card was created by adding a description. The next thing you can add is checklists, which we're going through right now. But the cool thing is you can have multiple checklists on one card. So if you want a checklist related to this type of thing you need to get done, and a checklist needed, related to this type of thing you need to get done, you can do that. Comments, you can see down here that you can add comments. When you add comments, you can add attachments. You can tag somebody. You can, show emojis, which I don't use a lot, but you can. So commenting is all here on the card, which means, talk about adding a new team member to the team. All they have to do is go in and see what happened. You can color code the labels. Okay, so this is the label, and they come with these colors. You can create new ones, and then you can edit here and name it so it means something. So in this example, I'm using a red label, and so when you're looking at it from this point of view, red means high priority. So this is how I use it. I want the stuff that's most important to stand out. So you can color code. You can add due dates. That's right here. You can add attachments, which I do all the time. In fact, with the knowledge base project that Unkid and I are working on, he drafts something and then attaches the Word document right to the card. So I don't have to go look anywhere else on a server. I don't have to go to Google Drive. I don't have to go anywhere. It's right there available to me. Really cool. And then you can assign team members to a card. Okay, so you can click on members, and anybody on your team you can add to the card, and then their face ends up being on the card. You can do it like that. And then you can add other people that aren't on the team as well. Okay, so that's all the different things you can do on cards, and there's more, but those are the basic ones. Cards get moved from one list to another. You've already seen me do that. This is a really cool feature. Let's say you already have a list. You already have a to-do list. You already have a list of things that need to get done every time you do X. You know, you have your own mental list that you know has to get done, or you have a physical list, like a Word document or Excel or whatever you use to make sure that you're getting all the steps done. Let's say you're doing a filing. You know, let's say you're doing a real estate deal. You know, you have all these things that you have to get done. If you already have that somewhere, go to Word, go to Excel, copy it, and paste it right into a new card. So you say new card, and you paste that list in, and Trello comes back and says, do you want all this to be on one card, or do you want me to create a card for each thing, each item in your pasted list? Which is ding, ding, ding. That's what we usually want, right? So it's awesome. We use that a lot because you already have the list elsewhere. And then I use this one. This one's so helpful. A new card can be created automatically from an email. So you get an email, and that becomes something you need to worry about getting done. You forward that email to the email address for the board. Each board gets its own email address, a unique email address. You can email that to the board, and the card gets created automatically. I forget exactly how it populates. Like, I think the subject line becomes the card name, and you can edit it all afterwards. But I use that a lot. And then this is just an example of how you could use, I talked about using the colored coded labels for priority, but you could also do something like this. Court appearances, witnesses, and depositions. You know, things that, that way when you're looking at the whole client matter as a whole, you can filter on those labels. I want every card related to a court appearance or every card related to witnesses. We love filtering. All right, so now we're done with cards. All right, do you guys have any questions so far? I'm assuming you would have asked them already, but let me know if you have any questions related to the basics of Trello, okay? And I'm going to take a drink of water. You know, that's what happens when I speak also. I always need drinks. Have to wait for the social media delay of comments to see if you have any questions. All right, I will move on, and I'll keep an eye out for any questions you might have. Actually, could I get a gauge of an honest opinion of what you think so far about being able to apply this to your work, like using this in the office? Give me a yes or no, or thumbs up or thumbs down, or, you know, heck yes or hell no, whatever you want, to let me know whether you think that you could apply this you could even just forget doing it at a client matter level, you know, with the teams and everything. You could just start using it yourself for your own to-do list and figure out what columns make sense for you. You know, we all described what we use now. Take that system you're using now and try using it in Trello, and try and create your own description of, or, you know, your own setup of what your columns would be. You know, what makes sense in your brain. It doesn't have to be what I'm using. It doesn't have to be what, you know, you saw the other lawyers are using. All right, so Wade says, it looks interesting. Does it have due dates or notifications? I mentioned due dates already, so when you're on a card, you can add a due date, and I already added a due date to some of these. But let's say that I want this to be due Monday, right? And then I save it, and that becomes the due date on the card. And then there's a way to look at the calendar, which I was going to talk about in a second, but I can do it now. There's a thing called power-ups. Actually, it helps when I share the screen. All right, let me go back here to show. So I just added this date. I went here and I added a due date of Monday, and I click save. So now that date is associated with that card, and now you can see it on the card at all times, and as it gets closer to that date, it becomes a highlighted, sort of like it's highlighted behind these check marks. And then there's a calendar view, so if you add what's called a power-up, there's a calendar view that you can enable. And on the free version of Trello, you can only add one power-up, but that's fine because Calendar and Google Drive are the ones I use the most, and I switch off depending on what I'm doing. So now, if I click on Calendar, these are the dates associated with several cards. So, and then if you need to change the date, you can go this way or that way, right? All right. So that answers that question for Wade. Alex is saying absolutely. Kathleen says I can read her mind, which I can. So Rebecca, good to see you here, Rebecca. She's saying yes for my own to-do list, set up an account, and have transferred already. Meaning you've already been using it, or you just used it, you just set up the account while I was talking. Let me know, Rebecca. Yeah, I think that if you start using it yourself and the attorney sees you using it, they're going to wonder, you know, I think it could grow on attorneys if you show it to them after you've already been using it and you've gotten comfortable with it. Sonia's saying yes, she would use it. Unkit is saying less time consuming and the best yet. Let's see. Jennifer's saying for new projects, definitely, but existing projects halfway done might be a little expensive to get all the tasks. Totally makes sense. Yep. And then hashtag legal, aka Nikolai, is saying personal or small team, yes. Company-wide, probably not. Yeah. And need to connect to billing, ship. There's all kinds of things you can connect to this. I'm not even going to start going into that. There's an integration tool called Zapier that lets you do all kinds of extra things in and out of cards. You can automatically create cards from your accounting system and vice versa. It's all there. Rebecca's a doer. Rebecca said she set it up while I was showing it to you. Awesome, Rebecca. Love you. Okay. Let me show you a few more things. We're at 1:30, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But let me show you a couple of extra things. So we already talked about this, where it's very low learning curve. And even for attorneys, that's why if you can get them on board, even if you just do it yourself, you don't even tell the attorney you're doing it, you get it up and running, you're tracking a matter that you're working on with so-and-so associate, and this will be a cool associate that might have an open mind, right? And then you show it to them one day, and you show them how you're keeping track of things. And then you just gradually say, do you want access to it? You don't have to put anything on it, but do you want to see it? You know? That's what I would do. I would do baby steps. I always do baby steps with attorneys. All right, this next card is, I want to let you know it works on PC, Mac, and there's apps for your phone, both iOS and Android, which I use, all of them. I switch back and forth between them because I'm a Mac person primarily. You can subscribe to notifications. It's very granular what you can subscribe to. So a person who's assigned to a card, like when I said members and I assigned myself to a card, that person automatically gets notifications, okay, because they're assigned on the card. A person tagged in a comment, so if I do an @ symbol and I put their username in Trello, then they'll get a notification that I did that. Unkit, and I use that a lot. And then someone can subscribe to your board can subscribe to a board, a list, or a card. Okay, so if you can get down to that granular level. So here's the subscribe for a card. Somebody who has access to the board but doesn't want to get, you know, a lot of notifications every time somebody changes something, they can just subscribe to a particular card. All right, calendar power up. We already talked about that. And then filtering. I want to talk about filtering for a second because that's pretty powerful. So if I go over here to show menu and I click on filter cards, you can see that I can filter by color. So if I want everything that's high priority, I could do that. If I click on it, now I only see the ones that are high priority, which of course I moved over to done. And then, let's see, you can filter on who's assigned, which is cool. And then you can filter on all these date related things. Okay. I'm going to clear my filter. Same for searching. When you search up here, you can search across boards. You can search in a board. You can add variables here. It tells you how to do it. You can add variables to your search that'll, I want all cards that have attachments. I want all cards that mention a member. I want all cards that have a certain label. If it was label, I'd probably go over here. But that's at the board level. So a lot of times I forget where I put something because I have a lot of boards that are similar in nature. They're tracking things, and I forget which board I actually put something on. So I'll use this search feature. All right, this is pretty cool. This is called a cover image. So all I did was attach something to the card, but there's this thing called remove cover and make cover. The opposite of that is make cover, and look what it does. It adds it right there in the list. This is a big image, but normally you'd have something smaller. But I just want to let you know that it's not just the text on the page. You can add images that might mean something to you. So if I remove that cover, you'll see what that looks like. It goes back to looking like that. Okay, keyboard shortcuts. If I hit a question mark, I get a whole bunch for you, those of you that love keyboard shortcuts, and I'm a 50-50 on that. Here's a whole bunch of keyboard shortcuts. I just wanted to let you know that question mark pulls that up. And then search I just sort of talked about. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up by clicking on the word Trello at the top. And these are all my boards. And they can be organized by teams, which is the one down here. Personal boards, private to me only. And then you can star boards to make them sort of like your favorites. And I just want to show you maybe 2 or 3 of these as examples. Do you interview people? Do you hire people? I know Wade and I hire people. So this is an example of keeping a Trello board for the process of hiring somebody. The columns are, obvious here. Phone, screen, interview, decision pending, offer made, rejected. And that history is all there. And then you're like, didn't that guy apply 3 years ago? And you could go back and look on your board, right? This is new hire onboarding. A list for what you do on the first day, what you do the first week, things like that. And then this one is a crazy one. This is the last thing I'm going to show you. And I'm only showing it to you because it just shows the epitome of what you can do with this software. So this is a board that has a lot of graphics, a lot of color coding, a lot of comments. It also has a voting process where you can vote for things because this is software related. But see how he's using imaging? He's saying anything to the left of here means one thing, anything to the right of here means something else. So this is just an example of a very busy board with the obvious color codes. Color codes are awesome. I mean, I use color file folders, I'm crazy like that. So... all right, so Kathleen says there's a ton of plugins and extensions for Trello. Yes. So I have about 4 Chrome plugins that I use. I told you about the Excel export one. I have one that gives me the total of the cards on a list. I have another one that lets me show and hide lists. So if you have like 15 lists, but you're annoyed that day and you just want to focus on 4 lists, you can show and hide lists. It's really easy to do. And get this, how we have parents and children in our world of litigation and e-discovery? I found a plugin that allows me to create parent cards and children cards because that's how my brain thinks. So that's pretty cool. All right, so Wade is saying pretty cool, even though he's using that Agility Blue, which I am now going to learn more about. Wade, thanks for that. Wade's always giving me good tips on things he's been using. Okay, so that's all I have for you. about 1:38, so that's not bad. I'll let you let me know if you have any other comments or questions before I sign off, because there's a delay in the comments. So also let me know if you're signing up for Trello, like, soon. This weekend, Monday, today's Friday. Rebecca's already on board, and but anybody else who's going to sign up for Trello, just to give it, I mean, you know how you try this new things and it's frustrating to learn the software? It's like, why bother taking the time to learn the software even though it's going to help me in the end? This is one of those that it's so easy. It's so simplistic. You don't even have to get fancy. You just, I mean, put all your stuff in one place and move it from one to the other. And it's okay if you move it back. Unkit and I do that sometimes. We move it back if it needs, to go back to a certain stage. All right, so Rebecca's saying great information as always. Victoria's saying signing up this weekend. Yep, cool. And then, hey, Kathleen, I did that on purpose. I threw that out there because you were talking about add-ons. Yep, parents and children, and I will definitely let you know which one that is. I was teasing her. It was my sly way of teasing her because I know she's a Trello person. Because you don't know, as you know, in litigation support and legal technology, you don't know what you don't know until someone shares it with you, which is really cool. All right, so I'm going to sign off, and next week I have a pretty cool guest coming. I'm really excited about bringing him, and that's all you're going to get right now, on to share what he's been doing with sharing his knowledge. I'm a fan of anybody who takes the time to share their knowledge with people in our industry, and I really am loving what he's doing, so I'm bringing him on the show to share what he's doing with you guys, and I'm sure you'll appreciate some of the stuff that he's doing. Okay, so that's it. Have a good weekend, and I will see you guys next week.